Hello and welcome back to another episode of Mainstream Dissident. My name is Adam and I'll be your host. This episode is being recorded on November 5th, 2025. And guys, remember, if you like what you hear today, go ahead and click the like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. My audio only, guys. Thank you for the 5-star reviews. Keep them coming, guys. If you're one of the video watchers, just go follow me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Leave me a 5-star review. It really does help get the word out there. And without further ado, you guys know me, Adam, and I'd like to introduce you to Joshua, aka Beholden To Truth. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Thank you for the invitation to come on your show. I'm looking forward to a very thorough conversation in regards to the ailments that you probably have talked at great length with your audience about. It's something I've been doing for almost 5 years now. So, meeting anybody who is like minded and co invested in trying to do something about America, Western civilization in general, it's a valuable conversation to have. So, I think both of our mutual followings will have a good time listening and watching this.
Yeah, definitely, man. Whenever you said yes to the interview, I was stoked because I'm actually a fan, as I've expressed to you. But yeah, dude, it'll be a good night. It'll be a chill night. So, first and foremost, let me ask you this, just so the audience gets to know you a little better. What actually got you into podcasting? What was the driving force that made you say, "Hey, I want to do this"?
Well, I'm a pretty fiercely introverted guy, which surprises some people because I have this like huge following on Instagram and I'm working on the other social media platforms too. And I sit in front of a camera and talk for hours on end. But naturally, I'm a pretty introverted person. And so before I ever started doing vlogs that I would share with the greater public, I formed this habit of recording video journals. And it was actually almost 10 years ago that I started doing that. And it was purely for the intent of capturing my kind of journey in manhood, but specifically in regards to physical fitness, going to the gym, learning how to diet. People take progress pictures of their changing physique as they gain muscle and lose fat and all that kind of stuff. And so I was recording videos, and while recording videos, I was like, it's kind of weird for me to just like stand here and record my physique. Why don't I talk about for my future self what I'm going through, the challenges of bulking and cutting and injuries and the self discipline and everything involved with succeeding in that endeavor. I just wanted to record some journals that I could look back on in the future. And then I got sucked into the political world largely as a result of becoming a born again Christian in 2019. And politics and the spiritual outlook on politics started to kind of find itself in my vlogs, where previously it was just like I just learned this low calorie high protein food that is awesome for me to eat, and then suddenly I'm talking about like war with Ukraine and Black Lives Matter and all these other random obviously political subjects. And even my first reading through the Bible, going to church, going to life groups, and all of the Christian life, I found all those subjects bleeding into my vlogs. And despite being introverted and liking my personal and private space, I thought that that journey through manhood was valuable to share because how I learned the fitness game was by watching influencers, if you want to call them that, but they were purely devoted to fitness. This is how I went through my physical transformation. This is how I started a company based on that, a merch apparel line, a supplement company, whatever else. And I loved watching their journeys. And I think the best part of them was their just candid conversation of extemporaneously speaking. They're not reading from a teleprompter, and they're just talking about their life and how difficult it is trying to go do these things. And so I was like, if I learned all of these valuable insights on life from these people in that format of published, basically self journaling, then I think other people could learn from my journey, whether it's the physical fitness or becoming a Christian, getting involved with politics. I just felt like there was gold in the content that I was kind of hoarding for my future self. I said, you know what? Who cares about the introverted thing? This is valuable stuff. At a minimum, people need to learn how to get fit and eat correctly. So I'll start publishing these things. And pretty quickly, it became political and spiritual in nature as well. So it started with just self journaling, which is something I really, really talk to my audience about. It's extremely valuable. There's no need to publish it, you don't have to share it with anybody. But this day and age, everybody has infinite cloud storage. We all have a camera with us at all points in time, It's a lot like prayer, self-talk. If you're going through a hard time, just sit down, turn the camera on, and verbalize what it is that you're going through, family problems, whatever else. You will be glad that you did it. I look back on my old vlogs, stuff that I'd never published, and I'm like, wow, I thought that was difficult. Look at the things I'm juggling now. People coming after my career. Like, that's not something I used to have to even think about. It was autopilot: show up, do good work, get paid, retire eventually. The problems I used to have are nothing in comparison to running a platform like this. So it's humbling in the long term, and it really pulls a lot of self growth out of you.
Yeah, man, that's honestly that's inspiring. Um, it is kind of it is a moment of self-reflection to look back at yourself on those moments, be like, "Hey, that's exactly where I was at. I can't believe how far I've come." Or the other way, like, "Hey, maybe I need to wake up. Maybe I need to get back to reality here." Um, but I actually discovered you by watching your Ken O'Keefe interviews. You had Ken O'Keefe on your channel, and did those get pulled off of YouTube?
30-minute slice of it did. The whole
Okay.
interview was, I think, 2.5 hours. And I got to give a shout out to Ken because he's just a remarkable man. He's probably most well known for being the very first frame that you see in Europa: The Last Battle, the infamous documentary series, 13 hours long, very educational. But I never entertained the idea of actually getting to meet the man himself. That was one of the pieces of my ongoing education on politics and how it's connected to the faith and everything like that. And Ken is, as I said, the first second of Europa that you see. He talks about how the head of the snake is the money supply. And so fast forward 4 years or something like that, and I'm making my own content. My Instagram's accumulated a pretty good following. And suddenly I start seeing Ken O'Keefe has liked your posts. I'm like,
Huh.
okay, well, let's take a moonshot. Let's send him a message and say, hey, you're a huge inspiration to me. Thanks for liking my content. And I had done probably half a dozen interviews with other people in the pro-white space and talking about the Zionist occupied government, stuff like that. And I just threw the pitch out there. I said, hey, I've had some interviews now. I've got some experience in the game. Would you be interested in coming on my show? And he's like, he didn't even hesitate. He's like, yeah, absolutely. I've seen the work that you do. It's valuable. Let me know when. And so through that, we actually became good personal friends where I've talked to him for, I don't know, 30, 40 hours of just sitting there late into the night, 4 hours at a time. The guy's got insane life stories. So I count him as a personal friend, but he's also somebody who has delivered wins in a real tangible way for anybody who is white and cares about Europa, and anybody who wants to fix the Zionist occupation or the larger Jewish influence nation, or larger Jewish influence problem in our nation. Most people recognize Ken. If you don't, absolutely look him up. Ken O'Keefe, retired U.S. Marine, just a great, great guy. But in regards to the YouTube and them pulling down part of that interview, I intentionally sliced the 2.5 hours up into 30-minute segments, putting them out in kind of a topical nature because people's attention span is a little difficult to maintain for a couple hours. And the 30-minute slice that pertained to the truth about Nazism or National Socialism, and not condoning or condemning it either way, but simply speaking to the objective governmental policies of the National Socialist government of Germany, pronatal policies, economic policies, demographic policies, and praising them, which is what Nick did. I'm sorry, not Nick. Ken did.
Ken.
Yeah, these figures in this movement, they're not interchangeable, but
We'll talk about Nick later, don't worry.
so Ken had some very praising words, not just for the governmental policies of National Socialism, but he had some kind remarks for a certain individual at the head of National Socialism. And that is precisely what YouTube struck that video for and gave me a flag on my account, to where if I get one more, my account's permanently deleted. So we're walking on thin ice over on that platform right now.
Well, judging by some of the topics we got coming up, it's probably good we're doing this on my platform. I have 0 strikes so far, everybody. 0 strikes so far. But dude, that is actually pretty freaking cool about you and Ken actually just BSing behind the scenes. Yes, guys. podcasters, we do talk to one another, so that's a little inside info there.
Yeah.
But, have you have you had to make any sacrifices in your life to do this? Like, you expressed to me that you're sitting right around the age of 40. You're in it for the love of the game, but have you had to make any personal sacrifices to accomplish your goals?
I don't know how much time we have because it, it's a weird sense of schadenfreude where people love to hear about the pain of others. But it's important for this conversation to mentally prepare people who want to go and do something about this. Maybe you're thinking about creating a social media account and getting these topics out there. Maybe you want to talk about these issues at church and talk about this whole Judeo Christianity thing. Maybe you want to wake up your family members. So, in each of those facets of life, I've suffered pretty tremendously. And this isn't playing the world's smallest violin. This is me setting realistic expectations for people. And keep in mind, I started the work 5 years ago, long before October 7th, long before more people started to embrace being critical of Israel. So I have all of two family members left who will still talk to me. Like everybody else went full no contact, siblings, grandparents. So my family life was turned upside down, unfortunately, when they found out that I was going out there doing this work, and not specifically just because of the Israel, Zionism, Judaism, that topic, but also because I'm open and frank about the racial situation in America. And I also talk about things like feminism. So their claims of misogyny, their claims of racist, their claims of anti Semitic. My family didn't like any of that. So I have two family members left who I still get to have a relationship with. And then in the professional life, I'll hold that one until a couple seconds from now, just to quickly hit on the others. When you try to go out into the dating world as somebody who, I'm not saying I'm a public figure, so to speak, but it's not something that I can hide. If you're going to seriously entertain a romantic relationship with somebody, that you have this following of 100,000 people and you have your own website. I can't keep this part of my life secret. It's a lot of work that I do every week, and it's unavoidable, right? I wouldn't want to keep it secret from them, also because I need them to be ideologically aligned. But when you meet Susie on whether it's Match.com or whatever other dating app or just out in the world, it's like this problem. It's like having cancer. It's like you have to bring this up at some point. Hey, just so you know, um, every day of my life, I'm called racist and anti Semitic, and people think I hate women because I have this company devoted to protecting the patriarchy and protecting Christendom and protecting white people. They call me fat phobic because I actually care about people taking care of themselves. So it's very difficult to find somebody who is fully aligned with all of those things, particularly in an age where feminism has destroyed our female population. The majority of females consider themselves feminists. The exact number is 61% in America consider themselves feminists openly, proudly, thinking it's a good thing. So the dating life has been pretty difficult. And then on the family subject that I mentioned, I'm sorry, the career subject that I mentioned,
Yeah.
I'm trying to count. Um, 3 or 4 years ago, I was just minding my business, walking my dog one day, and I get a message from my boss saying, "Hey, HR just scheduled a meeting with me that they want you to jump on as soon as possible." So like my heart starts pounding through my chest. I know what my social media is all about. And so we get in there, and it is the Sanhedrin of all female HR employees. And they want to talk to me about my social media. They got an anonymous tip on their little HR ethics portal about my content. And so the company that I'm working for is a very large publicly traded company, major corporation. And so they say this is a public brand risk for us. The fact that you're out there doing this work publicly, what do you have to say for yourself?
What's going on, you guys? It is yours truly, Joshua, founder of Beholden To Truth. Just wanted to say, if you'd like to help out the platform, go to beholdentotruth.com. You can get yourself something from the merch line, some of these anti-Zog occupation sleeveless t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, joggers, sweat shorts, whatever you may need for whatever season you are in. We got them at beholdentotruth.com. It goes a long way in supporting the platform and waking people up. I've had several people come up to me at the gas station, at the gym, at the grocery store, hey man, I like that shirt. You know what that means. And it kicks off a conversation. We're swapping Instagrams. This is how you meet people who know what's going on, who probably share much of the same worldview that you do. It's an open invitation for everybody to just step right in. So I appreciate you guys' support. Head to beholdentotruth.com and get your own.
And I'm like, well, all of my beliefs are biblically sound. They're morally unimpeachable. I don't advocate for anything that other people groups don't advocate for themselves. My religion is an exclusive religion. It's straight out of the Bible. Jesus himself says that there are no other ways to know God except through him. So if you have a problem with my statements about gender or about homosexuality, about race or anything like that, I'm happy to talk through those things with you. But I'm not doing anything that's morally questionable, and I'm happy to defend any of my positions. That was a close call. I was able to articulate my way out of that conversation. I was able to keep my job. Eventually got laid off for an economic downturn a few months later, and they laid off about half of our team. But in the back of your head, you're thinking, was I one of the ones they laid off because I have this tarnish on my HR record, and maybe it's best to go ahead and distance ourselves for other reasons, perhaps. But this next time, though, this was not ambiguous, and this is very recent. This just happened 2.5 months ago. Yet again, working for another one of these very large corporations that anybody would recognize. And I had actually made a pretty important decision in the evolution of Beholden to Truth. I brought on my first paid employee because I just thought that this was a necessary thing to do to scale the company, reach a larger audience, get some money behind social media marketing, really needed a video editor. So I bring somebody on. I even let them live in my home. And I had known this guy for over a year. We had changed or exchanged DMs through Instagram and stuff like that. He always supported my content. And so I thought we had a pretty good friendship. And so I bring him in, I give him a monthly stipend. He's living in my home rent free. And I'm just having him do those things that I mentioned, help me out with video editing and cascading my content across the various platforms. He works for me for all of 1 month, and I catch him doing some dishonest things. He was actually sending people on Facebook messages that I was running a cult, of all things. And so I saw the messages because the other Facebook person sent me them. They're saying, "What's up with this guy saying you're running a cult?" And so I confronted him about it. He lied and said, "No, I didn't send that." And so I said, "Okay, man, I'm sorry at this point. I can't trust you. You need to pack your bags. You need to go ahead and move back to mommy and daddy's house," which is where he was before I invited him here. And that really should have been the end of the story. Okay, let's go separate ways. Sure, it sucks that it didn't work out, but I genuinely can't trust you, especially living in my home when you're reaching out to my local community, spreading lies about me. Well, on his way out of my home, he stole a piece of my technological equipment. He stole a MacBook from me. I had bought a MacBook using my donor's money for him to do this video editing and that kind of thing. And he literally ran out of the front door, got in his car, slammed on the gas, and drove back to his home state with my MacBook. And so I sent him a message saying, "Okay, obviously that's a felony and you're crossing state lines and you're making it worse for yourself. I don't want to have to make this a legal matter and go to the police and that kind of stuff, but you need to return it. I'm not just going to let you get away with $1,000 laptop that my donors paid for."
Yeah.
And he was not willing to give it back. He said, "What are you talking about? This is my MacBook. You bought it for me and gave it to me as a gift." I'm like, "Okay, here we go." So this guy's a complete scumbag. And when I told him, if that's how it's going to be, then I will press charges. You stole it. You're lying. And I went and pressed charges. And to retaliate, he responded by taking some of my more controversial statements on social media, racial slurs and stuff like that. He sent them to my employer. Yet again, I get called into the HR virtual Sanhedrin, and I have to be fired by a Chinese HR woman telling me that we received this through our ethics portal. We received this content of yours on social media where you're saying things that our company doesn't stand behind, and it's a risk for us to keep you as an employee. And so, effective immediately, you are terminated. And so that was just a couple of months ago. And I'm unemployed currently, looking for my next gig. And I know that God will provide, so I'm not looking for pity on any of that. But this was a Judas-like character. I mean, I've never actually met somebody so dishonest and willing to burn the whole house down for the betterment of themselves. This is somebody who is pro-white, who knows all about the Jewish issues, who supported me for a year. But for whatever reason, in the situation he was in, I don't know if he had debts to people, whatever it was that would compel him to steal this stuff. In order for him not to be pursued by police, he was as malicious as going and getting me fired from my job, my career that I've spent over 2 decades building. So be very careful with who you trust. And I'll say one last thing about that, because
Okay.
I honestly absorbed it with grace. And as I said, I trust that God will provide. But one other reason why it's just not something that really, really hurts me emotionally, and I didn't get too riled up over it, was because I saw this happen with Nick and Nick's building his platform over the last 10 years. I watched his content. I watched him get betrayed by employees, by friends, by people who he bestowed his trust, invited them into the inner circle, and then for whatever reason, they threw him under the bus. They started lying about him. They started sending his content to their enemies, not Nick's enemies, their mutual enemies. And so when I got involved in this work, we talked before about the sacrifices in family, romantic relationships. I knew that that stuff was coming. It's like, yeah, people aren't going to like what I have to say, including family members and friends and potential wives and stuff like that. I'm ready to absorb those blows. And I'm sure somebody's going to betray me at some point. And I don't know why they're going to do it. I don't know when they're going to do it, but it's going to happen. And lo and behold, it did. So,
Dude.
yeah, those are just some of the sacrifices made over the last couple of years of trying to do my part in the mission.
Yeah, man. I was not expecting that. That's some heavy stuff. That is actually that's a crazy story. I could
Well, I mean, listen, the guy gave me a fake name for one, and so when I found out his
so
real
he was
name,
he was a scoundrel from the start, dude. He was after you.
oh yeah, I go into a background check on him once I gain his real name from the police. Turns out the guy has felonies going all the way back to 2008.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
mean, these are the snakes in the grass. I mean, yeah, I don't like talking negatively about other people who are pro-white and down for the cause and all that, but just because they're ideologically aligned doesn't mean they're good people. And I had to learn that the hard way.
And just in case the audience didn't know, which I'm sure everyone watching this probably does know, whenever Josh was saying Nick, of course he was referring to Nick Fuentes. We'll actually, like I think I said earlier in the when we were discussing Ken, we'll get on to Fuentes later here. But speaking about Fuentes, so he is known as, whether you guys love him or hate him, he's right now known as the leader of the Christian nationalist movement, or at least the most prominent figurehead of. Uh, Let me ask you this, Joshua. Do you identify as a Christian nationalist?
This is a fun question. This question is kind of similar to, do you identify as a white nationalist? You know, and I
Okay.
think somebody who can teach us something about how to respond, because my platform is largely devoted to educating people on how to be articulate about the most controversial topics. Articulation is a gift, and it is not something that you naturally have. It's a gift that is earned, and it is earned through repetition and education. And especially when it comes to these controversial topics, you start talking to your family for the first time about some of these subjects, being pro-white or talking about Jewish influence, your heart starts beating through your chest. You're wondering what they're going to say, if this is going to destroy your relationship. The only way to minimize those risks is based on how well you're able to articulate them. And Jared Taylor, for those who don't know him, is a pro white advocate. He's a Yale graduate. He's an old man now. I think he's 70 something, but he is the owner of American Renaissance, which is a journalistic outlet that's been in business for 30 years, previously in print, nowadays digitally. He does annual conferences, the American Renaissance Conference, and he's had Nick there. He's had other pro white figures. And he was asked at one point, "Do you call yourself a white nationalist?" And he said, that's kind of a trick question, because when people use those words and they put that label on people who are simply white, who love and care for their own fellow white people, it invokes a certain image. There's a connotation to it. And that's kind of intentional, coming from our enemies, due to propaganda, stuff like American History X. You know, you have Edward Norton with the swastika, and
Oh
they're over
yeah.
there tearing up grocery stores and spouting the N word everywhere they go. And it's not to say that using the N word is something that is a sin or anything like that. I'm just making the point that when these labels are applied to our priorities, whether it's a Christian nation or a white nation, they have been intentionally designed in the same way that the words racist and anti Semitic have been designed to invoke imagery that isn't helpful for us. And so, is it true that I see myself as someone who cares about the white majority in America and protecting it? And even further beyond that, I would say I want white leadership too. You know,
Oh yeah.
I don't just want a majority. I want white people at the helm of every civil institution in America, the education system, the government, the finance industry, our technology industry, all of it. So, a white nationalist, whatever you would describe as somebody who sees white people as a collective group, and just like every other group, they have collective interests that must be protected and preserved. And there's going to have to be some leaders in doing that who are willing to put their neck out there and sacrifice for that cause. I am one of those people. So, if people want to say, okay, that makes you a white nationalist, okay,
Uh,
I don't really care. I'm just somebody who cares about America. I care almost as much about all of Europa preserving its ancestral inheritance, which is a country built by white European people, particularly white Christians. We deserve to keep that. It was built by us just as much as Africans deserve to keep their African nations and Asians deserve to keep theirs. We, white European people, deserve to keep ours. And that means protecting the majority and protecting those leadership roles. So that's who I am, and those are my views on white nationalism.
Nice, dude. Nice. And so the reason I asked like the Christian nationalist, you brought up white nationalism. I right now, and we can touch on this later as the interview transgresses, but right now I am at least labeling myself as a Christian national socialist. Realistically, I could shorten that down to a national socialist just because, under the umbrella of national socialism, you're allowed to practice Christianity. There are non-Christians in the movement, and I know that that's detrimental to some people from actually joining that. And then I think that's where we have the split of, okay, are you a national socialist? Are you a Christian nationalist? Some people only say white nationalist because they don't know. Oh, but like you said, I don't know if I'm gonna be like standing on the corner greeting people, be like, "Hi, I'm a national socialist. Hi, hi, hi."
Mhm.
It's you have to have a certain bit of decorum when talking to the commoners about
Mhm.
these things. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. Um, but
Yeah, on
go
the
ahead.
Christian nationalist, I would say the exact same thing. It's the same articulation where if you want to call me a Christian nationalist because I say that Christianity was the founding religion of this country, it's the founding purpose of this country, and it must be protected as the majority religion in this country in the same way the white demographic has to be protected. And likewise, the leadership level of all of our civil institution should be Christians. Does that make you a Christian nationalist? Okay, fine, call it whatever you want, but it's genuinely as simple as Christianity must be the majority religion in our country and we must be led by Christians.
Dude, and your framing, I really do like it on the whole subject, whatever the label is.
Mm,
Because whenever men like you, men like myself, other men in the movement, other men in real life that don't have a show, we're fit, we're good-looking guys, we're going out there, and we're not afraid to say what's on our mind anymore. We're not afraid to advocate what's important in this life, what's important for society as a whole, American society, European society, white society, and, making it appealing to the general public and making it seem normal as it is a big step forward that we're doing. And that's why I actually um do think that having a strong Christian background, having a strong morality goes a long way. I attend church. I go every Sunday. I don't hate people that don't do that. You know, I know some people that say, "Hey, I'm a Christian," but they don't even go to church, not but Christmas and Easter, or sometimes not at all.
The few brave men who have actually tried to go out and do something about white genocide or talk about Jewish influence, the Zionist occupied government, we all know that they get crucified, their careers get destroyed, and so we need to find ways to support each other. One of the ways that I have done that is by creating my Substack, where there are exclusive early access to documentaries, my weekly vlogs, there are ebooks there. There's even an opportunity to set up a one-on-one 30-minute Ask Me Anything if you'd like. All of the proceeds from my Substack, from my YouTube channel, from the merch gets reinvested in the platform. I use that to pay my employees. I use that to buy the equipment that I need, the cameras, the lights, the MacBook, all the books, all of the software, pay for marketing, everything else, but also it protects my literal life. So if you want to help out, please do head on to Substack, get yourself a subscription. Thank you. I appreciate it. America first and Christ is King.